Welcome to the ALLGROUND Pod,
Welcome to the ALLGROUND Pod.
episode 18.
Episode 18.
Episode
Guys,
18.
Wow.
can you believe we've made it this far and haven't had a guest on, even though we said we were going to have a guest on at like episode 8?
No, like double digits was our first
No,
guest,
it was
right?
like episode 9 or 10 that we were like, we're going to have a guest on soon. And now the same people are listening. And you know what? Thanks for that because, you know, with our commitment to getting a guest on, I probably would have stopped listening.
Well, thank God we have Temp Ty every day,
Yeah.
except for
yeah,
the
yeah.
last
I'm
podcast.
like a guest.
Yeah,
Kinda.
but you're more like a host. You're like us,
Yeah.
you know? They
Yeah.
just can't see you.
They just don't know
They just
who
don't
you
know
are.
who you are or what you're about.
He's
And
a
let's
mystic.
be honest, is anybody even actually watching? I don't know. I think people are just listening.
In case you're
Yeah.
wondering,
well,
Ty
actually,
is a
Claire
mystic.
and Blake, I think, watched.
Oh.
Well, they at least had it on their TV. I don't know if they were just sitting down watching it, but I think they had it playing on their TV, and maybe they were doing stuff and listening.
Okay.
That would have been awesome if they were just sitting down watching, taking notes.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
But highly unlikely.
By the way, did you call me a mystic?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't. I also didn't tell people in the beginning that we're paying you $20,000 a month to teach us
Yeah.
the ancient wisdom of the universe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do
Mostly
wear a
through
robe
butthole
with
sunning.
like stars and like crescent moons on it. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, Ty can actually levitate if he meditates hard enough. And so
Yeah.
I go so hard when I meditate. So hard.
you do it hard.
Yeah.
Okay, so
enough of
let's
those silly
get into
jokes.
it.
Yep, let's get into it.
So
Elias was writing some.
one thing I wanted to talk
Yeah,
about
go
is you are back in training, and you've been pretty consistent lately.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm back in training. I'm back to working out. I feel like if I were to say back in training, it would have to be getting the grappling rounds, going live, like getting ready for something in the future. But I think right now I'm working out, staying consistent, trying to get back into shape, and I feel like doing the little things, like working out every day, twice a day. I've been trying to do 2 times a day at the very, at the most.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm trying to hold myself accountable to twice a day, and I am feeling better. I think the movement is making things better, rather than staying stagnant. You know, the old saying that Dad always told us: if you rest, you rust. You know, and obviously rest is good for recovery, but I think just when you're just not moving your body, you're gonna build some things up. It's never good to not move at all.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. So would you say that you would consider yourself, quote unquote, back in training when any random black belt could come in and just attack you and you would feel comfortable fighting that person?
I would just get into game mode. Like if a black belt came in and didn't want to attack me, I wouldn't roll with them right now.
Right.
Because I don't feel comfortable enough to do that yet. But if a black belt came in and attacked me, then yeah, I'm gonna roll. It's on.
But then there'll
I'm
be
gonna submit this guy.
consequences that you don't really want.
Hopefully not, but yeah, that probably.
Yeah.
I assume so. I'm definitely not in rolling shape. Not in shape for rolling, but like my back's still not cleared or good enough to roll.
Well, I don't know. I mean, like big and round is a rolling shape. I mean, by definition.
Fuck, I laid him up for that one.
Yeah.
I just sent that one straight up in the air just perfectly.
Yeah.
He slam dunked it.
Yeah. Broke the backboard at that one time.
Yeah.
That was a good one. That was the game winner.
Yeah.
We're actually going to end the podcast there because that was so good.
At the buzzer.
Yeah.
That's
All right. Welcome to the ALLGROUND Pod. What do you think the most important thing that you've learned through this time of not being able to train is? And I want to know, like, mostly in regards to getting back into training and seeing your goals through. Obviously, you have, visions and goals of being a world champion, being the best in the world at MMA. What have you learned? What have been the most important lessons about this time where you can't even wrestle people, you can't even grapple, you can't do anything you actually want to be doing?
Yeah, I think
Sorry, I just want to make it even more specific, specific to martial arts. Like, obviously, you've become a dad, and there's so many other important things, but just specific to martial arts.
Yeah. Well, one thing that you realize when, something that you love and are so passionate about is taken away from you, is that your mind is really loud, and that it's hard to shut it up sometimes, and it's hard to just stay focused and stay disciplined and stay on the path, and it's very easy. Like for me, like I've told people in the past, and I've actually told people recently, like when things start to accumulate and pile on, it's just like it's easy to go down the rabbit's hole. And I feel like there was some times like during this past 2 years where I did that, where I was like, you start to feel sorry for yourself. And I definitely like am, I guess I've done that. I've felt sorry for myself, and I've put myself in bad positions because of it, where I'm not as focused on my diet. I'm not as focused on like just everything. Once one thing in your life starts to go downhill, like it kind of like bleeds into everything else, right? Like you're not making your bed, you're not brushing your teeth as much, you're not fucking focused on your health, you're not going to bed on time. It's like all these things just start to like spiral when you feel like shitty or sorry for yourself in one area of your life. And like for me, I mean, better than anyone, like training is my life. Like that's everything. That's the one thing I've ever like really, really been passionate about, to where it's like, oh, it's impossible to not do this. Like I need it in my life. I need it every day. So like being forced into not being able to do it has obviously like built my mental just resilience, I think, because it's put me in those dark places, and I've definitely been in my head a lot of those times, and like being able to fight out of that and just like continue to like chant positive, I guess, mantras in my head, to where it's like, I will be back, I will be back, I will be training, and I still will pursue gold. I will pursue being a world champion, and there's nothing that's going to stop that. And even though, and I could tell you how many times I've like told Tina, like, holy shit, I don't know if I'm ever going to do this again. Like, I really just don't know if I'm ever going to be able to do this again. And just to like break yourself out of that mental headspace and learn patience, and just learn how to approach things differently. Because for me, it's always been easy to train hard, Yeah.
You think it's made you a better coach? I mean, because now you get people at your academy that get injured, and now you have empathy for them, and you can like help them mentally.
Yeah, I do. I've been able to like talk to Claire recently, who's also going through, her own back injury / issues that, she's had, and to be able to kind of not only just to like help, because I don't want to just be like someone who's like, oh, well, you should do this, you should do that, because really, every person's problem is different, and I just want to be someone that they can relate to, or someone that they can feel like, oh man, they're going through this and they have a positive attitude, and I want to keep that too, and it's helpful for me to see people like that as well. It's not just me giving it to others, it's others giving it to me. So like, yeah. It is definitely a more, I guess it has helped my coaching. One, because that's all I can focus on, or that was all I could focus on for a while. And two, yeah, it puts me in a more relatable space for people that are dealing with nagging injuries, or that are dealing with things that just feels like they won't go away, and they're not sure what's next for them as far as training goes. And yeah, it has. But
so a lot of patience, mental fortitude.
A lot of patience. I think the mental resilience is the biggest thing, because, it's just like, I mean, just think of the thing you love the most outside of your family. Obviously, like
your passion, your ultimate passion.
And just imagine that just being taken away for like, you don't know how long.
Yeah.
You don't know how long. And I still don't. I still like, yes, I'm training. I'm trying. I'm working out. I'm trying to be consistent, because I know it's good for my mental health. But at the same time, I still don't know for sure like when I'm going to be able to get on the mats and roll again. My goal is October, but that's just a goal that I'm putting in my head, because I almost want to manifest this, like it's going to happen,
Did you ask Crystal from Rev Health if,
I mean,
how
she
soon you
seems to be
could be
pretty
wrestling
confident.
and rolling?
She seems to be pretty confident. When I told her my goal of October, she thought like you'll probably be able to roll before then. Probably be back to your training before then. And like hearing someone else say that is nice, and it's definitely like gives me this boost of positivity. But it at the same time, I still got to get through it mentally myself. And like I'm the one feeling what I'm feeling, but it definitely helps hearing that. You know? So yeah, I'm trying to just keep that mindset, keep that focus, and just it's gonna happen.
Yeah. When you're obviously at your lowest and your body's just not doing what your mind wants to, is there a point, because you mentioned like, oh, what if I'm not able to do this anymore? Was there ever a moment where you genuinely like saw a future where you couldn't fight? Like genuinely?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
100%. Like not as in like, oh, I'm now building. I never accepted it, but like it was this weird fear inside me. Like I remember I don't know. I would break down to like Tina, like actually just because I would just get so much anxiety and this just like feeling in my gut that I would never be able to do it again. And I just like, I would freak out and just get scared. And yeah, man, yes. I didn't want to imagine it, but yeah, I like, when I would tell her, I don't think I'm ever going to train again, like that's what I actually thought. And I had no clue what was going on. No one could give me an answer. I still don't have a for sure answer, but I have some ideas of, what it's all derived from. But yeah, I went deep into the rabbit hole of just like, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
I will say it says a lot about you that that your biggest fear is that you don't get to get in the cage with somebody that is like a killer. Because most people, that would be their biggest fear, that they have to get in the cage with somebody that wants to murder them, right? So, I mean, just that alone says a lot about you. Like my biggest fear is I don't get to fight a world champion mixed martial artist.
Well, I think just like what I tell Tina and what I tell some other people is just like, I feel like there's so much left to give. Like I'm not anywhere close to like what I have to give to this sport. And there's like so much, not even for me, but like I've just worked too hard to stop now. Like I've worked too hard to like give in to this injury and not show where my true potential is. Cause I know maybe people have seen glimpses of it, but I know that like deep down I'm a world champion and I just need to be able to show that.
Yeah, definitely. I agree 100%.
And fighting is just down to like just primally, it's fucking scary. I mean, I'm scared when I'm in the back. I'm scared when, we're an hour before like going to the venue and you feel these nerves, you feel scared, and then you get in there and you fight someone and it's like, holy shit, this is the most like, this is just so real. This is real, and many people will never get to experience this. And though it's scary and I have fear and a lot can happen and it's dangerous, by the time you walk out of there, you're like, oh, I conquered that. I beat that fear. And like I showcased everything that I've been training, everything that I've been working my ass off towards. Like I showcased it this night,
Yeah, that was one of your post-fight interviews. That's exactly what you said.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm just so excited to showcase the stuff that I've been working on, all the skills that the art that I've been developing for so long. And, it's got to be exciting. I mean, honestly, what do you think about, win or lose, to have conquered that fear to get in there for people? Because I mean, very few people go undefeated their whole career. Somebody's you're going to lose more than likely at some point.
Yes.
Most people.
Yeah, most people will lose. Like that's obviously not my intention. I don't want to lose, but
you've lost before.
Yeah, I've lost before. Like it's not. I haven't lost in an MMA fight, but I've lost many times in jiu-jitsu and wrestling, and I've obviously tasted failure, defeat, whatever you want to call it, and it definitely, even though I'm explaining it to you like, wow, you conquered this fear, you conquered this like huge thing just by going out there. Like you already won just by going out there and beating the fear. But like when you lose and this is your passion, like you don't really think that first.
Yeah.
You go back and you're like, fuck, why did I fucking lose? You know? And you start getting pissed at yourself, and you running through all the things you wish you could have done, or like maybe wish you had done more, or like something you had done differently in the fight. And yeah, of course you like, our main reaction is to just get angry with ourselves and to get down. But yeah, I think like taking a positive spin out of it, to just be like, man, I did something that 98% of people would never do in their lives, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, so.
Yeah.
And I know
that's
I would
true.
be saying the same to people who have taken losses, or, you know, had said the same to Elias, you know, it's like, shit. Even like, despite the loss, you did something that so many people will never be willing to do. And like, you trained your ass off for it. You left no stone unturned. And that's what you should be proud of, and giving your best effort. Like, no one would be able to watch those and be like, ah, man, that guy's a loser. They'll watch those and be like, holy shit, this guy is tough as fucking nails, and he is a true martial artist, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's part of like maximizing your human experience and your potential is to not only put yourself out there and do things that you're afraid to do, but ultimately to learn something positive from that. Because any Joe Schmo can just go out and fight, but then that doesn't mean they're becoming a better person or a better martial artist. I mean, you can just go out and like do it for some money if you want to.
Yeah.
But I think the real power is when you decide, you know, that competition or that goal or facing that fear is ultimately going to make you a better person or a better martial artist.
Yeah. Yeah, big time.
In a sport where injuries, you know, are constant, how do you prepare yourself as a martial artist to, when you are back into training and when you are getting ready for fights, like how do you prepare yourself now, knowing that there's some injuries that can take you out for 2 years? What do you do? How do you evolve as a martial artist now from this point on, so that you can either deal with injuries better or deal with training better? What is your strategic approach that you've taken from this?
Thank God for Tina, because no, if it weren't for her, I would always just do the hard shit, you know. I would always just do, which like in most people's eyes is the hard stuff, but to me, like the hard stuff is like doing the mobility, slowing down, not like fatiguing yourself completely during a practice, and like, you know, focusing on the. One thing that I've been thinking about is getting like symmetrically strong, you know, like having strength like in both sides very, very symmetrically, and like building my body to like protect itself. So obviously, like when I am back and able to lift again, like I want to do a lot of lifting where I'm building strong legs, strong knees, strong joints, and like building the symmetry. And yeah, and then doing like mobility, things that are gonna like protect the knees, protect the joints, protect, you know, just mobility and strength training is something I really want to focus on when I get back. And then obviously like flexibility is a good thing too. I just want to be able to tell myself it's okay not to go hard today. Like if there's one thing I want to learn from this, I want to be able to walk into a training session and be like, I don't have to completely fatigue myself today, you know? So, yeah.
That's a good point about, you know, symmetry, because so many athletes are, they have imbalances on their joints. Probably one of the most common things you'll see is quad dominant athletes. So people have very, very strong quads and kind of relative to the strength of their quads, very weak hamstrings and glutes.
Right.
And so then you have this like imbalance across the knee joint. And so that will contribute to a lot of injuries. And it can be the same thing in your arms, like any of the major joints in the shoulder. You've got to work the antagonist muscles as well. Otherwise, you know, it's like, think about a tent with guy lines they're holding up the post, right? If one side is really, really tight and the other side is loose, the post is leaning one way or the other, right?
Yeah.
And that's what happens. You get people hunched over or bad posture and stuff. And it always ends up with injury, always.
Yeah. Well, you know what Michael Chandler says? quads for show, hammies for go.
That's right. Both are important.
Both are important. But yeah, definitely since my knee surgery, because I did the hamstring tendon.
Ooh, yeah,
the dude, my hamstring has been insanely weak in places that I'm like, what the? I was not expecting this at all. You know, I'll kick the bag on my left side and I just feel this like pain through the back of my hamstring. So yeah, like just the hamstring strength for me is huge. I'll just like, I'll get on the treadmill and just put it on the steepest incline and just walk up it and just for 30 minutes to an hour, just feeling the burn in my hamstring, my glutes, my calves, just to strengthen that, you know. But yeah, huge symmetry. That's something
baby.
I'm really, really into.
Yeah.
Do
you think, I mean, obviously you're a fan of martial arts wisdom and anime wisdom. Do you think there's an element of like spiritual symmetry that a martial artist has to have? Do you ever think about that for yourself? Is that something that you need in order to be the best in the world, or do you not lean into that too much? Where does that like spiritual alignment, either just with the universe or internally, where does that have an importance in your life?
Yeah. I wish that it was the number one important thing, you know, where I was like one thing and you know, look at us now, you know, talking. Well, there's a bunch of technology around us, you know. And like one thing that I wish I could implement into my daily practice or maybe specifically when I'm in camp, but definitely like eventually daily is just like being more like a part of nature, a part of what's around us that's like natural to this earth rather than being so like plugged in a lot of the time, which, you know, because of work and other things and just like it's sort of an addiction, you know, where it's like everything is made to keep you on it, you know, and like I know we've talked about this before, and like you and Tina and I used to get on each other about being in a scroll hole, you know, being in a hole of just scrolling,
Screenagers.
scrolling you're scrolling your life away. And like I'll even catch myself today doing shit like that where I'm like, I literally want to fucking toss my phone into a wall, you know, and I'm just like, I get so upset, but it's definitely a problem for a lot of people, and it's made to keep you on it.
It's
but
on purpose.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
that's the
yeah,
problem.
of course.
It's deliberate, which sucks.
Yeah. But yeah, I think like definitely if I pull inspiration from, you know, anime characters, just being like, being one, just being more in touch with like the spiritual side of martial arts and myself and just nature and
If you had to give yourself advice, you know, what would you say you have to do? Because you say like, I wish I did this. So
yeah.
if you had to look Laird in the face and say, well, then do this, what would you say?
Man, I would just want to go full Ashitaka, you know, just fully.
But maybe more in like the modern world. Like what are accessible ways that you could align yourself spiritually, just daily?
I think just being outside.
Yeah.
I think is a very important thing, and like I would love to just get in touch with nature. I think that's one thing that is so powerful that we don't even like, you know, pay enough attention to, is just being in nature and like absorbing the energy of the earth.
Yeah.
You know, this giant powerful thing that we're living on.
Yeah.
That's like all these trees and rocks and rivers and oceans, and you know, these things have been around forever on this earth, you know, before we even existed. And like there's power in that. Like there's extreme energy and power in those things. And I think like just being out there and absorbing that and being away from distractions where like nowadays everything is in your face all the times, you know, and whatever you want to see, you can see. Whatever, like, whatever you want to fucking watch, you can watch. And I think like just watching what's out there naturally for you, watching the fucking trees blow in the wind, watching the birds fly over the grass or drink in the river, or like, just being a part of that and absorbing the power of nature, absorbing the power of the earth. I want to do more of that. Definitely.
So if you were your own coach, I think what you're getting at, Elias, is like, what prescription would you give yourself? Like, would you say, okay, well, you're 15 minutes from your house to Galena Park.
Yeah.
Drive up there twice a week and go for a half-hour walk through the woods.
Yeah. That's kind of what I'm thinking about.
And meditate.
Yeah.
Just like because you can get up there away from all the road noise, away from the sounds of human beings, and all you hear is the wind through the trees and the birds chirping, and just spend X number of minutes up there. Like, what prescription would you give yourself if you could do that?
Yeah, yeah.
Which you can.
I think daily practice of silence in nature, where you're just observing what's going on in your head, observing what's going on around you, and not like, you don't have to do anything. Just sit and be in nature. I think just daily practice of that, where it could be an hour or 2 hours where, like I said, just observing what's flowing through your head, observing what's going on around you.
If you can't, like, let's say you're traveling or something, would the next best thing just to be
meditation?
Find a piece of grass. Or
I think anywhere you're connected, you can look up at the sky.
Yeah,
and feel the power of that. Watch the clouds go by. I think, when we're kids, that's great. You could lay in the grass with your friends and just watch the sky and look at the shapes for hours and be like, this is fucking awesome. And nowadays, like, you don't even think you have time for that.
Yeah.
You don't think you have time for that. And a lot of times maybe that is the case because, things are running at a pace that, like, you have to keep up with, You have to keep up with all these things to make sure you have a successful business, to make sure you have people in the doors, to make sure, you have just money in the bank. All these things are going to lead towards, like, getting away from those things because, you don't typically, like, if you're working, you don't feel like you have an hour to spend. Just first you got to drive out into nature, and then you got to spend an hour out there, and then you got to come back. And, like, a lot of the times you just, like, don't feel like you have that time.
Yeah.
I think to your point, though, there is a balance that you have to find because, like you said at the beginning of the podcast, when you start doing everything that you're supposed to be doing, then everything else in your life starts to work better. Like everything, like it's a more well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
And so, I would argue that getting that time for yourself whenever it is, but just prioritizing it is actually going to make you, better at entrepreneurship and work and doing the things that you need to do. I think that we sort of get lost in the sauce in terms of all of these things that we have to get done. But I think we actually would be able to get them done even better if we just gave even 30 minutes to ourselves in that regard. And I've noticed cognitive and, mental, just physical improvements overall from just finally deciding, like, I'm going to get back to every day, twice a day minimum.
Yeah.
Like hard training. Like, and getting ready to fight again, getting ready to compete again. Now I feel so much more switched on. I feel so much better. I feel like everything I do is, it's easier,
Yeah.
Or I can take on harder tasks with more, mental strength.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of nature, by the way, there's been a lot of studies where people that work in offices, which I do, two things that will improve people's overall happiness, lower their blood pressure, and make them feel better are having a picture of your family where you can see it, first of all. And then the other thing is some form of seeing nature. And you don't actually have to see nature, but you could have a picture of a mountain range that's beautiful that you really like to look at. And just having that on your desk while you're working can make a huge, huge difference. And so I'm not saying don't go out in nature, but what I am saying is that essentially proves the importance of nature. So if it's that important, it's like I can't afford to take the time to do it. Well, you can't afford not to do it. It's kind of the attitude. And so you just got to make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I like one thing that I've always talked about recently is like just simplifying life, like simplifying my life. You know, I think I've told you both about the movie Perfect Days or Perfect Days.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's about this Japanese guy who lives in the modern world, you know, the time we're in right now with all the technology, all the social media, you know, but, you know, his life is simplified and he takes pride in all the little things, pride in the things that some people would be like, this is fucking bullshit. And just does it to the best of his ability, even though he feels all the emotions. Sometimes he feels tired. Sometimes he feels, you know, happy. Sometimes he feels drained. Sometimes he feels unrested, but you know it's always the same. He goes to bed by reading his book. He has his light and he goes to bed reading his book. You know, he's not fucking scrolling on his phone like a lot of people are. You know, he goes to bed reading his book. He doesn't set an alarm because he doesn't have any sort of digital device near him, and he wakes up to the sound of his neighbor brushing the street every morning, and he wakes up to that. And then when he gets in his car, he picks one cassette tape. You know, he doesn't shuffle through Spotify or Apple Music, you know, oh, I don't like this song. Oh, I don't like the song. Let's change to the next, change to the next. It's just, I'm going to pick this cassette tape and I'm going to listen to it from the start to the finish, you know, or however long it takes to get through my drive, you know. And then he goes to work and he's a public bathroom cleaner. So he goes to parks and he cleans all these bathrooms. And he just does everything down to the microscopic detail. And, you know, he has a coworker that's sometimes shows up late, is, you know, talks like, this job is so, you know, annoying. Like we gotta, and he's just like, he hears that, but he just doesn't like let that absorb into him. And he just like, and then he goes home and I think he has like plants to take care of, and he, you know, brushes his teeth and does his thing and then does the exact same routine every day. And then it's like a little different on the weekends, but it's always simplified, you know. And there's no distractions, and even like when he's feeling sad, he's not just going into those you know easy.
It's not
hits
like letting
of dopamine,
you know.
Yeah, we live in this age where it's all about FOMO, right? Like we want to experience everything because there's so much to experience, and which has always been the case, right? It's just that because of the digital age, it's shoved in our faces. And we almost feel like we have to try to experience everything. Yeah. But it kind of cheapens the experience when you try to experience everything instead of being very, very aware. Like in the wisdom traditions, you know, they talk about you'll actually be happier and have a better sense of well-being the more aware you are of your experience as you're having it.
Yeah.
Instead of just twisting in the wind and going with the flow. Like feel like when you feel pain, experience that pain. When you feel joy, experience that joy. Yeah. When you're training and it hurts, like revel in it because that's life. Like you're experiencing life and you'll feel more of a sense of well-being. And so trying to simplify your life and don't try to experience everything because that's not even possible anyway.
Yeah.
Then you can your experiences will be more meaningful as you have them.
Yes. Yeah. An example, like sometimes I've told my friends who have gone through breakups, and I've gone through this myself, is like sometimes when you go through a breakup, you're so used to like being someone that at that point you hate being alone or you feel weird being alone. So it's like I've always said, and I think this is like a big reason you see people like break up with someone and then get back together with them like not too long after because they're just like, oh, I'd rather just deal with the stress of being with this person that like, you know, we obviously don't work out than be alone, be in my own head. And so like one thing that's super important, and you know, when I moved back to San Jose by myself, like I was going through a breakup, and I just remember like I don't have my brother, I don't have my sister, I don't have anyone. Like I'm just living in this little in-law unit by myself. And I think that like helped me so much to literally like be forced into being alone and just like have to have these thoughts in my head and just not do anything about it. Just think about them and just let them go in and come out and just be okay with it. And like, I think you can take that into many other things too. Like, don't distract yourself from what's really going on. Just like feel it, understand it, and move on from it. Yeah. You know?
And that's basically what meditation is. It's like upping your level of self-awareness and awareness at all times, because we go into autopilot and we just kind of go through life, and then we'll look back and be like, I don't even know what I did today. Like, what did I even do? Right?
Yeah.
You should be aware as much as possible of the experiences that you're having. You'll learn more. You'll enjoy it more. You'll have a better sense of well-being for sure.
Yeah, big time. And listening.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Listening is an important thing.
Yeah.
I think I've had a couple conversations with some people about this. I talked to Corinne about this also, talked to many people. But like a lot of the time when you're talking to someone and they start talking back to you, you're almost just waiting to say the next thing that you have in mind, you know, rather than being like, wow, I'm really taking in what they're saying right now.
Yeah.
A lot of times, and I catch myself doing this where I'm like, oh, just hold on to that thought, Laird, while they're talking so that I can say it. Like, I just want to say what I want to say. Right. And instead of just being like, you know what, if they move past that and I don't get to say that, that's totally okay.
Yeah.
Like, be okay with that and just like allow this person to talk and allow yourself to listen, you know?
Yeah.
What's
That's
the
probably
saying?
why
Like,
interrupting hurts so much, right? Because when you interrupt, you're saying, I care more about saying what I want to say than what you're saying.
Yeah. Interrupting pisses me off the most
Yeah.
if someone does it or when I do it.
Yeah.
Because instantly, if
God,
I interrupt,
I'm such an idiot.
yeah, I'm like, why the fuck? No, I'm sorry. You keep going. I don't know why I had to jut in there.
I think it's also like you see it a lot from people that have a lot of siblings.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Or people that are just grow up in households where it's like, it's hard to get in a word. You know, if like the whole family's talking about something, you're like, you got to be quick if you want to get your joke in or you want to get your saying in. You're like, I got to be quick. I got to bounce in there quick. So when you're talking to people, you'll just be like, oh, I got to add this in. I got to add this in.
Yeah.
You know, and like, hey, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, right?
Yeah.
So listen more and talk less, I guess. I mean, that's kind of the saying. But I do think like just an important mentality to when someone's talking to you, just actually listen to what they have to say. Like hear what they have to say and respond accordingly to that. Or you don't have to respond with your own story about how that fits into like what they're talking about. You can just you can just
acknowledge what they said. You can be like, oh, well, that's really cool. I like that. I'm gonna think about that more. Yeah. No,
Now Ty's like, I'm gonna listen to you guys this whole time, and I'm not gonna add anything.
It's you know, when you listen to the pace of a conversation. When I have a conversation with somebody that I talk, and then when I stop talking, they kind of sit there and I can see them processing what I was saying, and it takes them a little bit of time to respond.
Yeah.
It's more meaningful.
yeah.
If they're just like trying to get it. Now, that having been said, I think there's a responsibility when you're in a conversation to not just talk nonstop for 20 minutes where people can't get a word in edgewise, because that also is saying, I don't really care what you have to say.
For sure.
I'm just going to keep talking and dominate.
Yes, conversational flow is obviously a thing. Like you want to keep a conversation going if you're talking to someone.
Yeah.
You know, if they say something, you're not just gonna sit there in front of them and ponder that. You know, and just be like,
This is uncomfortable.
just make them feel awkward about what they said. It's like, You know, but I think also, like I said, just not always trying to relate what they're talking about to something that's happened to you or something that's happened, even though that's just naturally how we work. You know, like you're just like, oh yeah, I know what you're saying because this happened, you know, in my life or something like that, or you know, I did this once, or I think you can keep conversation going without like bringing it into your own.
Yeah. I think it's a good practice.
Yeah,
I think
it
it's
is.
a really good practice.
I don't think you exclusively have to do that.
Yeah.
But
So you're saying you don't necessarily need to tie it into some relevant experience that you've had, so you can feel like you're participating.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the one-upper guy. You know?
Yeah.
I got this friend. He, you know, he fights in the UFC. He's 8-1. And you're like, yeah, well, I got a friend that's 10-0 in the UFC.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Okay,
exactly.
one-upper. You know.
Oh,
That's actually not
great.
that impressive. My friend is 10-0.
Yeah.
The guy has a loss, loser.
Yeah.
You suck. My friend's
You're a
cooler.
loser too for talking about him.
Yeah.
Let me
And my
talk.
he's done it across 3 weight classes. He's the best. He's the absolute best.
Actually, my guy is 12-0.
Hey, but also, if we couldn't do this sort of thing and you know, talk about our own experiences, we wouldn't have a very good podcast. That's
That's
for sure.
true.
Yeah.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So podcast-wise, not a bad thing.
Yeah. Well, I think they're different conversations.
Yeah.
Like conversations like this were meant to bounce off one another.
Yeah.
When someone is giving you wisdom or saying something important where it's coming from an emotional place, you know, like having a conversation with your partner. If you can tell that they're upset about something and you can listen and really just take in what they're saying and their experience without even thinking about your response, then I feel like that is where it's most powerful. You know, when we're just having a podcast, we can bounce off each other, but there are moments where you really need to listen and to process a question, even on a podcast. If you're being interviewed, I actually like to see people take their time to answer. When I'm listening to podcasts or watching a podcast, I love when, you know, a really good question is asked and it's not answered right away. Like the person almost takes a second so that they can say the right thing, because your words are super powerful.
Yeah.
Plus, they're being recorded and you can't take it back if you say something stupid.
Yeah, just take a second.
Yeah.
Unless you slip, you know, Laird $10. And you're like, hey, man, can you take that out? It sounded real dumb right there.
Like, I thought it was really cool on the podcast the other
Your
day
podcast
when Laird said nothing.
Yeah. God, that was where he really showed his wisdom in that podcast.
Our minds are connected because I was about to say the same thing.
Yeah.
I was literally about to say that. That's hilarious.
Nice. So
That was
from
episode 16.
Six
Oh, yeah.
That was funny.
From a student's perspective, though, I feel like I feel like one of my responsibilities when I'm in class is to try to listen as deeply as possible and to absorb what you guys are saying, because in that environment, you are the subject matter expert. You are trying to teach me something that you are far more knowledgeable about. And so, you know, as a student in any martial arts class or in a gym or whatever, where you're learning, you know, talking less and listening more, very, very important.
Yeah.
You know? Like, and you guys talk about it, the what if guy, you know,
Yeah.
Well, what if they do this and what if they do that? That's not really the point of this lesson, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think part of that from you is you've also experienced being a teacher and being a coach and trying to formulate lesson plans. And I think the one thing you learn as a coach and someone trying to provide knowledge and wisdom as a service is, more than anything, you need to understand like human, what is it? Just humans in general, like human behavior is what I'm looking for. And mostly, like, a lot of people are looking at you, but they're not listening. So if you're a good coach, you want to say some things, you want to have these words, or you want to check in on people so that they're actually listening. Because so much of giving the knowledge is understanding human behavior, and most of them just, their eyes like glass over. And then a lot of them are thinking, well, I'm just going to start drilling this, so I'll figure it out. But if you set yourself up for success by really listening and almost visualizing as you're listening, then you won't be one of those people that doesn't know what they're doing and they're looking around the room, they're just trying to copy.
Wait, what did he say? Can you tell me?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes, you know, you guys are instructing and you got to go take a leak or something. You come back, you get in halfway through the instruction, you're like, you have to ask your partner what they, you know, but then it's never as good, right? Because it's like a game of telephone.
Yeah.
They're like, wait, this guy knows less than me, and he's going to tell me what Elias or Laird just taught him. Like, it's probably not going to be very good.
Yeah. I always tell people just raise your hand or just call us out. Just don't try to like figure it out with each other, you know, like, or if you think you know, like, you should just ask.
Yeah.
If you think you might know, just ask, you know, because chances are like you could miss a detail that's like
really important.
Yeah, that's really important, or you're
or
giving
going the
someone
exact
the wrong,
opposite direction. Yeah, it's like
you're
that
giving
happens
someone
all the
wrong
time.
information.
Yeah.
So whenever I see like, you know, like a white belt or a blue belt kind of like instructing someone, I'm like, hey, like, what do you guys need help with? Like, let's,
Yeah.
I could figure this out, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, maybe they are right. And they're like, hey, I was telling him to put his leg here because he was putting it here. And I'm like, okay, that's great. But it's better to just like have the input from the instructor than to just leave it to them, because yeah, something could go wrong, or they could miss a detail that's like really important, you know, or they could say something that's just not the case at all.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also, to your point of like Ty being a good coach, it brought up an idea, like, or just a thought. I think what can really make someone a good coach or teacher is like teaching or coaching your loved ones. Like, there's nothing more difficult or more painful than like coaching or teaching your loved ones, because your loved ones are not gonna take you as serious. You know, they're gonna be more willing to talk back. They're gonna be more willing to, like, you know, argue with you or fight with you on something. And like, I think, thank God for our dad just like always putting us in the position of, you know, because yeah, I remember going through a phase where I was just like, I thought whatever my dad taught me, I'm like, this is just not right. You know, I just thought I was better than it.
What
and
does he
I was
know?
I was like, no, Dad, because you know, so and so teaches this way, and like, why wouldn't we, you know? And you just like, no, just that tests your patience, coaching your loved ones. And nowadays, like, I tell people, when Elias is coaching me, it's like I turn off brother mode.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this guy's a coach. Sometimes I'll even say yes, sir, like. Or like, yes, coach, you know, I'll say, yes, coach, yes, sir, when Elias is telling me something or teaching me something. And I'm like, I think that's just from so much practice of us, like, you know, coaching each other and training with each other. And just like, you kind of got to separate the two. You can't like have the emotion involved and think like, oh, because like he's my brother, or because he's my dad or my girlfriend or whatever, I can get away with saying this because, like, you know, because we have such a close relationship. You know, and you understand that obviously teaching your kids, that's probably the hardest thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. My nephew is like, if I have something to, like, if I try to pass something on, like, he wasn't in class. And so I'm like, oh, this is what we learned today. Let me show you. He's just all ears. Like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
if I do that, like my sons, they're like, yeah,
yeah,
they don't want to know. They don't want to know.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
But that's one thing I really like about your guys' teaching style is in a lot of situations, you'll get those people where you'll try to correct them, and instead of them just saying, oh, okay, they'll try to justify why they were doing it the way they were doing it. You know, they're like, oh, well, I was doing it because I, you know, blah, blah, blah. And like, I don't need to hear your whole spiel. It's just wrong. Don't do it that way. But I don't see that happen a lot here. I mean, it happens every so often. I see it every once in a while, but for the most part, people pretty much they just take your instruction. They're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll just do that because that's better.
Yeah.
I definitely get people, like Parker is pretty good at this. Like Parker will ask like, oh, why should I do it this way? Why am I not doing it? Why can't I do it this way? And like sometimes it'll bring up maybe I'll be like, you know what, it's not like any way is better than the other.
Well, that's
like,
not always true.
It's not always, yeah. Sometimes there is a way that's clearly better than the other. But, you know, sometimes there's like, yeah, you could do that, but that's just not what we're doing right now.
Right.
You know, and like add this to add a tool to your box. You know, add a tool to the box just by having this slightly different version of that, you know, or like a different grip or a different, you know, and like you're going to also get different reactions based off that different grip or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So yeah, Parker definitely asks a lot of questions of like, oh man, what if can't I just put my grip here instead? Or like, and I'm like, yeah, you probably can, you know?
Yeah. But that's still different than,
Yeah.
you know, the whole, you know, going into the defensive,
Yeah.
you know, like arguing, I was doing it this way because of this.
Yeah,
and,
you know
what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I don't think we
happens.
get a lot of that, which is
Yeah.
which is great. Yeah, most of the time, and when I explain it, Parker will always be like, "Oh, okay, right on," and then he'll just drill it, you know.
But that's honest inquisitiveness, not you know, character defense.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a gym culture thing too, or an academy culture thing. How much authority do you have as an instructor? And obviously, Laird and I have both competed at the highest level, so I think people just tend to trust us more. But and then also we participate. I mean, Laird to the best of his ability, but we participate in so much of the training here. So like people see us as a coach, but also as a peer a lot of the time. You know, when in comp class or preparation, you know, getting ready, we're peers. So I think it's easier to not be as you know, inquisitive in like you're denying the technique way. You know, that people ask good questions here, and they trust us, and I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, trust between coach and student. You know, we trust our students; they trust us. Like it goes both ways, and I think that's going to benefit everyone a lot. You know? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So speaking of jiu-jitsu, one last thing I wanted to kind of end on here is like we're a jiu-jitsu academy, and you know also we're business owners, and I listen to a lot of entrepreneurial podcasts and business podcasts, and the biggest thing right now is how AI is affecting every single business. Every single business is having to implement, you know, AI into their system, and it's changing infrastructure. It's changing the way the system is run. And I was thinking, well, jiu-jitsu is like a cool business to be in, because as of right now and for the foreseeable future, it's all physical. And it's a way for people to escape the large influence that is technology and get into your own body and start problem solving things, you know, when you have someone trying to choke you out. I mean, you're there in that moment and you're not thinking about anything else.
Yeah.
But
I mean, sorry.
my question is, and this is for both of you. One, for you, Ty, because you have a technical background, and Laird as an instructor. How does AI like really influence combat sports in the immediate future? And then maybe in the long run, if you guys have a good guess.
I mean, I've got stuff, but why don't you start?
I don't know. I mean, like, cause I haven't used it too much. I couldn't like give a clear answer on that, but I do think like, yeah, I don't think AI is ever gonna take away like physical hobbies like that, you know, or not like jobs. Like jobs can be taken over by, you know, machines with artificial intelligence or whatever, but like physical hobbies where you're going in and you're learning a skill like jiu-jitsu required to have a teacher and a partner and people to roll with, like that's never going to go out of style because everyone's going to want that. And like people, no matter what, even if they could develop an AI that's like has two jiu-jitsu guys going through a move for you on over the phone, like you're still going to want to be at a gym rolling with people practicing your technique. So it's like, yeah, maybe like AI will be able to coach just as good as us, you know? But like you'll never get the same experience of like rolling with different body types, feeling different reactions, like in physicalities and in different brains that are working in different ways to get the same move, you know? And so things like doing jiu-jitsu or doing a boxing class or like, I don't think those things will ever like go or just be taken over by AI because there will always be demand for people to want to get that energy out and roll physically with another person.
Yeah. There's always going to be a primal demand.
Yeah, yeah.
People want to learn how to fight.
Yeah, and like it's just more there's just more emotional connection. Like even if AI could say, "Hey, I wrote out your jiu-jitsu structure for this week. This is what you're going to be learning. Here's a video on that. Here's a, you know," and they could tell you exactly what you should be doing every week, and they're giving you an example or a link that shows you what you should be learning, how you should be learning it. People are still going to want the emotional connection to a coach, someone who they can trust, someone who's going to teach them, someone who's going to promote them, someone who they're going to be able to, you know, be friendly with, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so yeah, I totally agree. I think that in the near future, probably the way that AI will be integrated into the combat sports will be more of an analytics role where
time.
if you have multiple cameras on a match, they'll be able to break down that match and have all the what ifs answered. Like, this guy got the submission here, but based on AI, they're like, if he had tried this escape instead of that escape, he had a 95% probability of getting out.
Yeah.
Or what would have been a better strategy, right? Also, feedback. So when you're like trying to practice, and if you have cameras on you, you'll be able to look back and get an AI report on like what things you are not executing properly. So getting some feedback. I don't think that it's going to ever replace coaches because jiu-jitsu in and of itself is a human experience.
Yeah.
And so like, that's like, sending a robot on a hike for you. You're like, what's the point? Now in the distant future, I could see, have you ever seen I think it was a movie or a show called Surrogates?
No.
Where people don't leave their house and they have like an android that goes out and lives their life for them, but they're connected to it, a neural link.
Yeah.
So they're not physically experiencing that. Now, I don't think for most people that would be particularly valuable, but what if somebody's paralyzed, right? Now they can actually physically experience jujitsu while, being a quadriplegic or something like that. Things like that could be pretty freaking cool, right? Or if you could, it was all of your intellect in that android, and you could say, hey, we just want to know who actually is the better master of jiu-jitsu. You could have two androids that are the exact same physical model, so there's no physical advantage whatsoever, and now these two people in a surrogate way are controlling these two androids, but they're experiencing it as if it's them, right? Like imagine something like that where, that's way in the future, but that could be kind of cool.
I even think like the analytics side is cool, but it's also like could be hard. If you take the example of like, like your probability of going this way with this sweep would have been this much more successful. It's like, but how? Like, because there's literally an infinite amount of reactions that people could give you.
Sure.
And like, not to mention it's going to be different for like, hey, this guy has really big quads or thighs, and his weight distribution is going to be slightly different than this guy with skinnier legs. Like,
well, see, but
even
that's
if
where
they're
I
doing
think
the exact same thing,
AI could actually analyze that and take that into account in a way that a coach might not.
That'd be insane.
Right? So that could be kind of interesting and cool.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to, again, replace coaches, but I think it could enhance your coaching.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a supplementary thing. But going back to the whole nature thing and getting away from technology, I feel like most of technology is so intrusive in our lives right now that it is no longer a tool, and it is now, it's like you don't go to the hardware store and buy a hammer so that you can just sit there and stare at a hammer all day.
Yeah.
It's a tool, and when you need a hammer, you pull it out and you hammer a nail in, and then you put that hammer away.
Yeah.
But that's not what our phones are anymore. Now our phones have become this like focal point of our lives, when in reality they should just be a tool.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I was thinking as you guys were saying it, there's gonna be a point where you'll be able to just plug yourself into a Matrix-like program and go experience a jiu-jitsu class.
Ready Player 2.
Yeah, but it's not actually the real world. So
Right.
it's not like an android that's your conscious is connected to, or where you can finally go take a real jiu-jitsu class. You'll just eventually artificial intelligence will be able to
virtual
replicate real life, and all of its movements, and we'll just be able to plug in and go take a jiu-jitsu class in dimension 472.
Yeah, it's totally possible.
You'd never reap the physical benefits of it.
That's the problem.
Yeah,
right? Then we
that's
end
the
up in like a
problem.
Wall-E kind of situation.
Yeah,
we're
where you're just like
rolling around in chairs and we're all like 400 pounds and drinking shakes all day.
Yeah.
I don't want that.
Yeah.
Unless
your body was hooked up to a bunch of like, transmitters, just like
and
in the
it's
Matrix.
like
'cause
literally
they are.
like flexing the muscles
Yeah,
that
it's
get flexed in those moments.
But I mean, think about
be
this. This is interesting, right? If we could have that android situation with surrogates, right? It's kind of like that movie Real Steel with Hugh Jackman, right? Where he's like fighting the robots.
Yeah.
But imagine, where it really becomes who's the better tactician, who has the better muscle memory, and it's not like there is no physical advantage.
Yeah.
Now you can have mixed, you know, all the transgender hype. Like it doesn't matter, right? Like men, women, we can all compete. It doesn't matter because you just like you fight with that model of a robot, and whoever's better is better. Period.
Yes. Yeah. You know what? Like in the future, if there's one thing that I would want, and I think you know where I'm going with
I know
this.
exactly where you're going. Can I just say it?
Yeah.
It's a replica of you.
Yes.
So you could fight yourself.
Yeah. So if you could hop into like some sort of virtual reality, and let's say I gave AI like a video of or my fight from Chicago, and they analyzed that laird, and then they could put that laird in front of me and be like, all right, this is what he would do. This is how physical he was. This is how good a shape he was.
I know what kind of hair you'd have.
Yeah.
He'd have a mullet.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
And I could like just compete against that version of myself. Oh, that'd be so badass.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, actually,
be
it's
so
super
fucking
interesting
cool.
though, because I always tell people, you know, that are down on themselves that have been coming for a couple months and say they keep losing to the same person. I'm like, keep in mind that person's also getting better along with you. So
Yeah.
they're not just static, right?
Yeah.
But if you could go back and fight yourself from 2 months ago, you would crush that person.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you could actually do that, it'd be really cool.
Yeah.
I would love to just go back to blue belt laird and just bully him. Just
Beat him
push
up
his head into the
bad,
mat,
yeah.
like mess up his hair, give him a noogie, and be like, keep training, kid.
Back to work, kid.
The sad part is when you get old like me and then you go back, you know, and your 35-year-old self just beats the hell out of you. You're like, oh God, I've fallen so far.
Nah.
No, it never happened. You're like, when I'm 80, I'll still be able to beat my 20-year-old self.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Dope.
Awesome. Well,
Anything else?
no, that was good. That was really good.
Yeah. That was
I think
really
so.
good.
I think so.
Yeah.
Great
Party
work.
this Saturday.
Party this Saturday.
Oh, yeah. Don't
Yeah.
forget. Oh, my God. The espresso machine is finally going to get raffled off or a drawing.
Shit. Are we sure?
Yeah, here, let's
Yeah, I don't think we
let's
wanna
cut
do
a
it that
promo
night.
for let's cut a promo. We'll look at the cameras and then you can cut them together.
We're looking.
Actually,
at our
let's end the
cameras.
podcast first.
Okay.
Thanks for listening to the All Ground Pod.
Thanks for listening to the All Ground Pod.
Good night.
Buenas noches.